Hello Matrix and welcome again. Today we are doing Factorising, which most of you would have done in the previous grades, but maybe you haven't done Matric in a while or you just want to refresh. This video should help. So what I've done is I've divided it up into three different types of these factorising questions which you might see in question 1. 2, 3, and 4 terms. Because the number of terms generally tells you what type of factorising you're going to need to do. So if you have 2 terms, you're going to be looking at difference of squares or difference in sum of cubes. If you see 3 terms, that's a trinomial. So you're going to be needing to get your 2 brackets and to cross multiply. If you're not sure, you can always just put it into your Silver Casio calculator, if you've got one, and work the answer out from there. Or you can just do old school and put it straight into the quadratic equation. I've done a video already on the 4 ways that you can factorize a trinomial. So I'm going to put the link to that video on the screen now. So if you want to know how to factorize a trinomial 4 different ways, because I also do difference of squares, completing the square in that video. So check that out now if you wanted to know how to do a trinomial. But I will do the one example here. And we can also just quickly look at the quadratic formula. Then there's 4 terms, and if you see 4 terms, there's going to be grouping. So let's get to it. With 2 terms, you're either looking at a difference of squares or a difference of cubes / sum of cubes. So if you don't see a perfect square in the first number, like here you see a 32, it's usually disguised because the first thing you do with factorizing is you look for common factors. So when I look at the 32 here and the 2, I see the 2 goes into both of those. So I can take out a common factor of 2 already. And then I have 16x squared minus y squared. 16x squared is a perfect square. So the square root of 16x squared is 4. And I just say x. The square root of y squared is y. And then I just exactly the same as the first bracket, but I change the minus to a plus. And that's pretty simple. So most of you probably have done difference of squares. Again, if we're looking at the, if there's a plus 32, if it had been 32x squared plus 2y squared, it cannot be factorized, so you leave it as is. You don't factorize any further. Again, we look at now a difference of cubes probably, although 4 and 32 are not perfect cubes. So we look for that common factor and we see it again. So once again, it was disguised. 32 and 4 goes into both of those. So we take that out and then we get 8x cubed minus 1. These are both now perfect cubes. So take the 4 out. Now, there's a method and it's the same every time when you get the difference of cubes or a sum of cubes. So what you do is you look at the first term and you cube root it. And that goes in your first bracket. So the cube root of 8x cubed is 2x. Then you look at the second term and you cube that. The cube root of 1 is 1. And you just keep the sign. So whatever was in front of that 1, you keep that sign. Then to do the second bracket, all you need to do is actually look at what you've already done. So what you do is you look at that first term, 2x, and you square it. You square that first term that was in the first bracket, and you get 4x squared. Then what you do is you times the 2 numbers that are in the first bracket together. 2x times 1 is 2x. But you change the sign because it's 2x times minus 1 is minus 2x. And you change it to a plus 2x because it needs to cancel. And then all you do is you cube root the last term. So minus 1 times minus 1 is plus 1. And there it's factorized. This 4x squared plus 2x plus 1 does not factorize any further. Now, I look at this x cubed plus 1, it's already in x cubed, and I do exactly the same thing. So whether it's a difference of cubes or a sum of cubes, I do the same thing. What do? I square root the first term, cube root the first term, so that's x. Plus, and then cube root the second term. And remember, the plus stays a plus. So let's just make a note there. So the minus, you see, came all the way through. And then the 2x times the minus 1, I just became 2x because I changed the sign. So exactly the same thing again here. Cube root x cubed, cube root 1. And now for the second bracket, I look at what I've already done. And then I say x times x is x squared. I square the first term. Then I say 1 times x, and I change the sign. So I change the sign, so it becomes minus x. And then I cube root, I square the last term. So that is 1 times 1 is plus 1. And that's done. Just want to make a note there. So we times these together and change the sign. And then the 1, the plus 1, oh, keep that in yellow. And then remember the plus 1 remained plus 1. So that's when you get 2 terms. Now, let's do 3 terms. So again, I look at the terms and I see that there's a 2 goes into all of these. Okay, so I take out a 2 and I get 3x squared plus 11x plus 6. Right, now I can put these into my my calculator originally. So what I could have done is I could have gotten minus b, which would be 22, and put that in. So if you're not sure how to do this and you suddenly go, I'm not sure, then don't worry, just use your quadratic formula and work backwards. But let's try and do this. So what we need to do is we need to look at the first term and get the factors. So let's do that over here. So it would be 3x and x are the factors of these two, this first term. Then the factors of 6. Okay, now I look at the sign. If it's plus and the middle is plus, I know that it's plus and plus, plus and plus. Okay, so let's try. So let's try 3 and 1, 3 and 2. And what we do here is we say, what do I need? Okay, actually, let me do one. Yeah, that's fine. 11x. Okay, so what I do is I say x times 3 is 3x, and 3x times 2 is 6x, and it doesn't work. So what I do is I can swap these two around. I try 3 and 2. What do I need? I need 11x. X times 2 is 2x. 3x times 3 is 9x. Okay, there were plus and plus to get 11. And I've got my brackets, so these are my brackets. So I can simply put that in there. 3, 2, 3x plus 2, x plus 3. Okay, when you see this to the nearest decimal place, so when they show this, like to the nearest 2 decimal places. So if that's in the question, you know that because they're wanting 2 decimal places, this is probably not a method that's going to work. So you need to then use your quadratic formula. Also, if they say leave in surd form, because the third form we looked at in the last video would be a square root. So you would know that you would need to use the quadratic formula. Okay, so if I had to do it using the quadratic formula, I put it in here, negative b. Now, so my b is the number in front of the x. Again, there's another video on this. So I'm not going to waste too much time on here, but that's the c is the 12 in yellow, and the b and the a is in blue. Okay, and I would put that into my quadratic formula and I would get 2 answers. Now, for this, what I would do is I would get the following answers. I would get x equals negative 3 and x equals negative 2 over 3. And the reason I get that is because this brackets, if you were to make them equal to 0 and you solved, the signs would change. So once I've got this answer, if I'm wanting to factorize, I still have to take the 2. So I have to notice that there was a 2 in there, and then I would have to say x plus 3 and 2x plus 2. And if I times this out, you see I get exactly the same as I got earlier. So 3x plus 2. So it's all well and good using your quadratic formula, but remember you need to work backwards to get your brackets. So this changes sign. Then the number at the bottom goes in front of the x, and the number at the top goes to the other side, and there's a number by itself. So can we see here intuitively, the 3 is the number at the top. Okay. So yeah, the number at the bottom goes in front of the x. So 3, the number at the top, goes over here. And 2, the number at the top, goes over here. The number at the bottom, so let's just imagine that there was a 1 here. So the 1 goes in front of the x. Okay, grouping. So with grouping, it's going to be 4 terms. So when you see 4 terms, you know you're probably going to have to group the terms. So what you need to do is look for the terms that look alike or have the same kind of ratio. So I can see that there's a 6 and a 6 here. So I'm going to group these together. 6xy plus 6y minus 2x minus 2. So I've grouped them together to make them a little bit more digestible. Then I take out a 6y because I see that there's a 6y in both of them. And I get x plus 1. Okay, and here I take out a minus 2. See there's a minus 2 there. And I get, careful, you have to say plus 1 because I'm taking negative 2 out of both. So this negative becomes a positive as well. And now I see in white, these are both the same. So I can say then, I'm going to keep them in the same color so we can follow 6y minus 2 and x plus 1. Okay, so that's factorizing. And hopefully that helped you guys out. In the next lesson, I'm going to be doing equations where we look at this type of factors and then we work out how to solve the equation. Again, Most of you probably have done this before, but if you haven't, yeah, really hope this helped. And if it did, please find the subscribe button down on your screen below, or like this video and share with your friends. And hopefully we can all get going and have a great matric.